Hello, and welcome to the Personify Leadership Podcast, the podcast where we explore the transformative journeys of leaders who have embraced the principles of Personify Leadership to drive success within their own organizations. I'm your host, Michelle Cummings, the CEO and the Chief Creative Officer at Personify Leadership. In each episode, we'll dive deep into the stories of our clients, uncovering the challenges they faced, the strategies they implemented, and the incredible outcomes they achieved through our experiential leadership programs. From fostering effective communication to mastering delegation to having courageous conversations, our guests are going to share real world insights and practical tips that you can apply in your own leadership journey as well. Let's go check out who our distinguished guest is today. Hey, Gerry, how are you?
I'm doing great, Michelle. How about you?
I'm doing well. So listeners, this is Gerry Singleton. Gerry, why don't you do a quick introduction of yourself?
Sure. So, Gerry Singleton, I am the CEO of Montana's Credit Unions. It's a trade association in Montana that serves all the interests of our credit unions throughout the state.
Okay. Now, one reason why I wanted to invite Gerry on as our first podcast interview is that Gerry was actually one of the very first people that was certified in our Personify Leadership Core program. So our very first class, Gerry was there. So Gerry, why don't you share a little bit of the back history? How did you find Personify? What drew you to it? And what was your how did you initially use the program?
Sure, absolutely. So it's a great story, Michelle. As I'm sure the listeners know, you have another company called Training Wheels.
Mm-hmm.
And congratulations, by the way, this year represents the 25th anniversary of Training Wheels.
Yes, this week actually, which is
Yes.
crazy. Yeah.
So very cool, very exciting. And so I want to say somehow I stumbled upon Training Wheels probably within your first year.
Okay.
And so probably 24 years ago,
That's
right? And so
crazy.
if
So
we
we're
did a
looking
Zoom,
at that'd be around the year 2000.
yes,
Dates
yep,
us a little bit, but
yes, it does. So many, many moons ago. And if we did a Zoom around my office, you would see that I probably have anywhere from 1 to 20 Training Wheels gear in my
okay.
cabinets, in my closet, scattered around my office. And I have found that so effective in my own facilitation, my own training that I've done all over the world in the last 20 plus years. In that, so Michelle, as you know, you send a newsletter out every week from
Mhm.
Training Wheels, and you shared one time more than a decade ago that you were super excited to be launching this new leadership program called Personified Leadership.
Mhm.
And I was on your newsletter distribution, and I thought, you know what? I'm in a place in my career where I could use some additional leadership development. I had moved into additional roles in leadership, and I thought I could use it for myself. And there was a train the trainer option. So I thought, you know what? I love facilitating. Let me go ahead and sign up for the train the trainer as well. So I actually learned about it from your Training Wheels newsletter.
Okay.
What drew me to it, Michelle, was just the things that draw so many people to it is it's based in research, it's based in solid science around leadership, which is really important in business,
Mhm.
right? In the corporate world, that's
Right.
super
We can't just
important.
make this stuff up. We've got to have some data to back it up, right?
Absolutely. That's super important. And the experiential side.
Mm.
What I have found in my career, and even way before that, was the power of the experience, the power of putting people in situations where they learn and grow themselves, self discovery, and all of that. And so when I was reading your article in the Training Wheels newsletter about Personify, it talked about the balance of both.
Mhm.
That intrigued me because I didn't see that anywhere else. You know, as I
Yeah,
looked all
and
scoured
it's
the
still
internet.
one of our differentiators for sure, because we have, I mean, there's 8 core competencies of effective leadership. And so there's 8 modules in the course, and each one of those modules, for the most part, starts out with some sort of experiential activity that really surfaces the behavior that we're about to go into the classroom and teach skills in. And really then the class helps leaders understand, like, how do I manage that behavior in either myself or the people that I lead and whatnot. So it is what sets our program apart from others, is the experiential nature of the program.
Yep, absolutely. 100% agree.
All right. So how has Personify, I mean, you've been now it's like 13-ish years or so since you went through the program. How has it impacted you personally, not just as a trainer, and we'll get to that a little bit later, but
Sure.
personally as a leader in your organizations, how has it impacted you personally?
Sure. Well, I would not be exaggerating to say that it's changed my life.
Hmm.
right? And that's big. That's a tall order, isn't it? Wouldn't you agree?
Sure. Yeah.
That's a pretty tall order. When I first got certified, I immediately took it back to my organization and had my team go through it. The team that I led had them go through it, and also another department in our organization that we worked with every day. Let's
Okay.
have two teams come together and go through the program. And I saw right then and there the ahas, all the things started clicking for folks around communication. If we went through all the competencies, we would
Sure.
talk about it. From our team's perspective, though, we started using the language, we started using the tools, we started applying the skills, not only within our team, also with the other team that went through the program. We had this shared experience now, and we worked together so closely, and we could have been a lot more effective in
Mm.
our working together. And
Okay.
Personify brought us together to do that very thing. So right out of the bat, that's one huge aha in how it has changed my life as a leader. It changed how I set expectations with my team, how I communicated, how I listened, like all the things. And if
Mhm.
I could, I'll just share one. I'll say a small example. It was a huge example.
Okay.
Was about a year after I went through Personify, I was asked to be the lead negotiator of a very significant multi-million dollar contract.
Okay.
And it was going to be a big change. It was a big change for our industry. And it was had significant risks associated with it, if you will.
Okay.
And to be honest, if I hadn't have had the Personify skills in my back pocket and about a year of using them, I don't think the outcome would have been anywhere near where it was.
Okay.
To be honest, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Oh,
Absolutely,
so
bar none.
sounds like maybe you tapped into the spine. You had
Yes.
to have some courageous conversations, right? With the
Yes.
spine of the leader.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And it resulted in, how do you maintain a strong partnership and relationship while
Mm.
also significantly, substantially changing the terms of a decades long partnership? So
Yeah.
how do you do both to hold integrity in place, to hold the partnership, the value of the partnership when a lot of things were being questioned? And when you mentioned the spine, this is the one I talk about a lot or think about a lot is people said to me, well, Gerry, we know you're just a messenger. We
Mm.
know that you're just a messenger here. And it would have been really easy, Michelle, for me to say, yeah, you're right. I'm the
Sure.
victim.
Yeah, let's
I'm the
blame
victim
somebody
here.
else. Hmm.
Right. And I had to own it. I had to say, you know what? Yes, I am the messenger, and I believe in this change. I
Mm.
believe it's the right thing to do. And if we do it right and we do it in partnership and we do it with all the right things in mind, ultimately with our customers at the center of it, we're going to get through it. And I'll tell you what, Michelle, we got through it. It was
Mm.
hard. We got through the change. It resulted in significant savings and an increased partnership. And
Okay.
what I said is the dependencies went away as a result of this change.
Okay.
Instead, we made a conscious choice to partner. And it's a lot different when you feel you're stuck versus when you feel you have a choice, right?
Oh,
And
yeah,
so I
absolutely.
felt that everyone had choice in the matter. And then as a result, our partnership grew stronger, such that now it's been over a decade,
Mm.
bumping up against 13, 14 years later. And the partners feel that it's at the highest level it's ever been.
Ah, that's great.
Pretty
That's
cool.
great. So safe to say you would make the same decision again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hmm.
Regardless of the role I have or where I would play, it was the right call, it was the right decision, and I would do it again.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So how has that ripple effect in 10 years then? How does it affect you now?
Right. So I'm in a new organization, a new role, and guess what? One of the very first things I did in my new role is bring my team through
Mm.
Personify,
Yeah.
and it was really interesting, Michelle, to see within the first day after the program, uh, the team was using the language, using the
Hmm.
tools. And I joke about this a little bit on delegation. We talk about the hands of a leader and delegating.
Hmm.
Um, my team got really, really good at delegating to me. So
Okay.
one of the things you talk about is how do you delegate upward and
Great.
around and throughout the organization. And then I was like, ooh, I don't know if I like this so much. I'm only joking, of course. Uh,
Yeah.
but it was fantastic because it's providing direction and support. And that works all directions in an organization, especially smaller organizations where you wear all the hats, you do all the things.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you do put an intact team through our program, because of the experientials and because of the concentrated focus for those 2 days, like team building is actually a byproduct of the program. It wasn't necessarily our intent when we were designing it, but it is a byproduct that happens really naturally because you're working together. You're talking about how can we bring our best selves? How can we strengthen our skills as leaders to actually be the leader that we want to be for our, for ourselves, for our people, and also then how does that also benefit the organization?
Mhm. Absolutely. And to add to that piece, not only the team element, now you have the critical mass of leaders in an organization all using the tools. Whereas if you just have one person go through, they come back, they're a leader of one, right? Who
Yeah.
understands the 8 competencies and the tools, and they'll be effective as a leader from an organizational perspective. However, when you can take an intact team through, you have that as well. You're all using the same vernacular, the same framework, the
Yep,
same tools,
absolutely. Yeah,
right?
it's good to have that foundational language that everybody is kind of working from.
Right.
And then you can actually really
Mhm.
see when people are working on the skills too.
Right.
And that's also a really fun thing, or at least, an impactful thing as the founder and co-creator of the program, when you actually see leaders really trying to use the skills and being successful with them, it's really rewarding.
Right. Yes, it
Yeah.
is. Absolutely.
All right. So, Gary, I know you also have done an ROI study on our course. Can you briefly share a little bit about the study that you conducted? What did you measure? And then what kind of results did you get from it?
Sure. Absolutely. As you know, investing in leaders is one of the best things an organization can do, and it's also expensive, right?
Hmm.
You have
Yes.
the cost of the program, the cost of the facilitator, all those things, and you also have the time that the leaders are out of the office, right? So
Yeah.
there's all of that going in. So I knew that if I was going to not only go through it for myself and also then become a facilitator to facilitate other groups, that also is an investment. So I wanted to make sure the investment had the potential returns for the program. And
Yeah.
so, as a certified practitioner in ROI, I thought, I'm just going to apply some of the tools and skills from the ROI certification here for Personify. And so, I used that core program, the initial 2 groups that I went through, and I conducted what's called a human capital ROI.
Okay.
So, what that means is, as a leader next year in 2025, hopefully, I'm a better leader then than I am today, right? And so,
Hmm.
what percentage of effectiveness, how much more effective do I want to be next year?
Yeah.
So you start with all the costs. How much does it cost to offer the program? And that's everything, fully loaded cost. It's not only the cost of the materials, also the facilitator, the room, the meals, and fully loaded costs of the salaries and benefits of everyone who participates in the program.
Mm-hmm.
So you dump all of that in, fully loaded costs. And that's a big number. It's only
Yeah.
a 2-day program. However, when you add all those costs, it's a pretty big number,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? And then on the human capital side, what I said to the leaders is via a post-event survey and then follow up 30, 60, and 90 days later is how much more effective do you think you're going to be as a leader the following year?
Mm.
Across the board on all factors, not
Okay.
just as a result of this training, right? So on all factors, I need to deliver to my organization more next year than I did this year. What does that deliver look like? Right. And so on average, the leaders at my organization said 20%. We need to deliver 20% more next year than we did this year.
Okay.
Great. Then you start breaking it down. How do you make up that 20%?
Yeah.
And how much of it goes all the way down to this training and the application of the skills from this training? When you do that, so and then you say, well, people tend to exaggerate, right? When you go to a program, you come back, you're going to change the world, right? Here
Exactly.
we
You're
go.
all excited. Yep.
Right. You're
Mm-hmm.
ready to go. And then you realize life happens, right? You're behind on emails. Everybody wants a piece of you, right? All
Yep.
those things. And so people tend to exaggerate unintentionally, but exaggerate what they feel they're capable of doing when they come back from something. So I take a conservative approach. So I lop off, 35% of whatever they tell me, I lop off 35% just to say you're
Okay.
probably exaggerating. So the reason I do that is to be hyper conservative
Yeah.
in the program. And so what the teams, the leaders told me was, here are some of the business results that they feel that they have as a result of their being better next year than they were this year on all the factors. They need to be better at communicating. They need to have more effective delegation and handoffs, right? That
Okay.
because there's always can be some misses in handoffs in
Sure.
delegation. Um, Decreasing the time it takes to complete their work, They have big projects that they're working on. If they can shorten the cycle of that, that's a win, right? And that can be
Yeah.
quantified in some ways. Increasing their effectiveness as a leader of people. So their people leader effectiveness, to be a better coach, to be a better guide, to hold people accountable for results, all of
Mm.
that, to be more effective in that, to increase their own personal productivity. I know that's something I saw right away. I suddenly was a lot more productive, right? And so I can attribute some of that back to this program. And then finally, employee and customer business partner satisfaction,
Okay.
right? If I'm a more effective leader, hopefully that's going to rub off on my employees and my partners and my customers. So that's what the leaders told me their goals were for the next year, to be more effective in those areas.
Okay.
Then it was straight math. Then we
Right.
said, how much of all of this is attributed to this program? And when you do run all the numbers, it was about just over 8%,
Okay.
right? So 8%, it's not big, right? That's a
Yeah.
small number.
Right.
However, when you multiply 8% times their effectiveness and their results over the next year, that results in a pretty significant number. You subtract out the costs, right? The fully loaded cost of the program, that resulted in about a 200, just over 200% ROI.
Wow.
So having the program, having the leaders go through the program and then go back and apply the skills with coaching and accountability, which is an important part of it,
Right. Mm-hmm.
200% ROI, and the payback time. So we paid the money, right? We invested in our leaders. The
Right.
payback time was just under 4 months.
Okay.
So, and that's powerful. So when you're
That
an
is
organization looking at investing in a program of any kind, you want to say, what's the payback?
right.
How
Exactly.
quickly can I pay back this big investment that I'm making in my people?
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. Yeah. And Gary's been very giving and has shared that with us. So we'll leave a link in the show notes to the study that he did and a little bit of description of like what it is that he measured and things like that. So so people can have access to it. But yeah, I think it was a 204% return on your initial investment of doing that. You had paid for it, and then, and then after that, then you just it's you're reaping the rewards after that if they're still staying true to implementing the skills that they learned and all of that. So yeah, really fantastic.
That's great. And I would love to. It'd be fun to go back now that it's been more than a dozen
Oh,
years, to
yeah.
go back and almost do a reverse ROI study to say over a dozen years, because I know the team is still using the skills. I know I'm still using
Yeah.
the skills.
That would be interesting.
That would be interesting. And maybe look at what are the other results that people are looking at,
Hmm.
beyond the ones I described. So anyway,
Yeah.
it
That
provides
would
an
be pretty cool.
interesting challenge.
All
Yes.
right. So Gary, you also so Gary has also come with me on a few international trips to come and deliver. How many continents have you delivered Personify on?
Yeah. So the US, of course, Africa
Uh-huh.
and Asia,
And
right?
Asia.
So
Yep.
three of the continents, and I know we're looking at some others
We are.
moving forward as well. So
Yeah,
super
indeed. So
exciting.
Gary has actually now progressed into one of our master facilitator roles to where, and what that means is that Gary actually can certify other people in the program now through the Train the Trainer program. He's delivered it, maybe not as many times as I have, but he's delivered it a whole lot because you not only deliver it internally at your organization, but you also have a few clients that you deliver it to externally as well. So, I know they span multiple different industries and fields and things like that. What are some common threads or themes that you see, outside of your current industry, but with anybody that you deliver the program to? What are some of the things that people say about it or get excited about?
Sure, absolutely. And what's interesting, Michelle, is the comments, the connections that people make are there regardless of the continent that they go through the program in.
Sure.
Right, which is really cool to see. So the ahas that come across. So many leaders say best leadership program they've ever gone through. In
Mm,
fact, I had one leader in Africa. He was a government official from one of the countries in Africa, and he shared that he's been in leadership programs all across Europe. He mentioned many cities in Europe, in Canada, and the United States. And he said by far, Personify was the best one he's ever attended, by far.
wow.
And that's
Amazing.
cool. I just conducted a session here in the United States 2 weeks ago,
Mm,
and the CEO said the same thing. He said, Gary, I've been in lots of leadership programs over my 40 plus year career.
sure.
And he said, I wasn't quite sure what to expect, actually, because I've
Yeah.
been there, done that. I've been through
Right.
all of them. So
Exactly.
he's
Especially if
like, I
you're
wasn't
higher in the organization, you've
right.
been through a lot of this in your career. Yeah.
Exactly. And he said, I wasn't jaded necessarily, but I didn't have the super high expectations or whatever. And he said, oh my goodness, when I went through it, I couldn't believe the impact it had, not only on him as a leader personally, who's on the other side of the longevity curve, also to see his team go through it, because he did it as a team, to see his team go through it. So that's one. People say best program
Mm,
ever. The second thing I would say is people almost to the person say, wow, this applies in my life, not just in my job.
yeah, that is
Right? I've
true.
heard people, yeah, people say, I'm a better wife, a better mom, I'm a better husband, a better dad. I can use this in my um, committee groups,
Sure.
kids' school, sports
Volunteer
teams,
work, like, yeah.
volunteer work, all those
Hmm.
things. And so the skills are transferable to life.
Yeah.
So that's a second thing. The third thing I would say is people say the skills are practical.
Mm,
They're real. It's
yeah.
not like
And
something you do in a
easy to
classroom.
implement. Hmm.
Yeah, easy to implement. It's not something you go through in a classroom and you go back and don't apply it. It's like, you know what? It works.
Yeah.
I had one leader come to me um, post COVID, or it was like kind of in the middle of COVID, and he was struggling. He said, this and this and this, and it's like, oh my goodness, my team. And then it was, it was a great conversation. Then I just went back and reinforced the different aspects, the different modules on how applying those. And he said, "Oh, I'm supposed to use the skills, and it
All
helps
right.
during stressful times, right?" And so that was really cool too, to see that application, see the light bulbs go off. So the practical nature is also a really, really big one. And
Yeah.
then the fourth one's the bonus, and that's fun, right?
Yes.
People learn really well when they're having fun. I know you talk about it a lot on the training wheel side and the
Hmm.
Personify of there's the comfort zone, right? There's the panic zone, and then
Right.
there's the learning zone. And during the comfort zone, it's hard to learn because you might be bored, right?
Right.
In the panic zone,
Exactly.
it's hard to
Hmm.
learn because you might be freaked out, right? But in that learning zone, and in the learning zone, that's where magic happens. And it happens because the program is fun.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's fun and it's sequenced very intentionally. Like, as we layer in the skills that we teach, we build off the last one and we keep referring back to the first, second, third, and fourth. Like, and so by the time you get through the very end of the program, we have talked about and reinforced all the skills that we teach along the way, to where then by the time you walk out of that 2-day program,
Mhm.
then you really have reinforced all 8 of the competencies or
Yeah.
behaviors that we teach in the course as well.
Mhm.
And then we have a mobile coaching tool that actually, helps reinforce that learning. And
Mhm.
next, of course, we have a new program coming out this next year, that is the follow-up program, which we're calling the deep dive program, where we're going a little bit deeper in that. And Gerry was instrumental in helping design and add input into a lot of the material and the concepts and things like that we put into the program. So Gerry, I've just so appreciated and really just like you have been such a great partner for us over the course of the last 12 years. And if we could clone Gerry and have lots of people like Gerry that love the program, implement it, see the value in it, that's just something that has been really beneficial and valuable to us.
No, well, thanks, Michelle. And the feeling is very mutual. It's very, very mutual. As I see it as a great opportunity to change the world, right? In
Yeah.
a lot of
So what's
ways.
next for you, Gerry, for Personify, for what you're doing there in Montana and beyond? What's next for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're continuing to launch and roll out Personify within Montana's credit unions and across our credit union industry. So that's one very specific piece. And included in that are some additional international opportunities. I know that you and I have been talking about
Hmm?
to continue to take Personify to the world, if you will. I know you've set some pretty big goals of 1 million leaders
Yeah.
going through Personify. So I feel what's next for me is to do my part,
Ah,
right? I'm
okay.
not willing to put a number out there of how many of those million I want to
Right.
tackle.
Okay.
But I want to play that role because, and here's the why. The big why is I see the difference it makes in people's lives
Mm,
every day, and if we can reach people where they are, regardless of the sector, regardless of of their role in an organization, whether they're an existing leader, a leader's been around a long time, an emerging leader, a young leader, whatever it might be, this program has a great opportunity to change their life like it did for me.
yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, Gerry, thank you again for your willingness to come on, share your excitement and love for Personify, but then also just for a continued fantastic partnership. Thank you for all you do and to help me achieve my leaders of influencing 1 million leaders that have gone through Personify in the next 10 years. So thank you again so much for being a guest on our very first podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michelle. It's been a pleasure.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Leaders Personified. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our guests for sharing their inspiring journey and valuable insights on how Personify Leadership has impacted their organization. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Your feedback helps us bring more inspiring stories to leaders like you. For more information about Personify Leadership and how we can help you develop essential leadership skills, visit our website at www.personifyleadership.com. Join us next time as we continue to explore the transformative power of leadership and hear more success stories from leaders who are making a difference. Until then, keep leading with heart, and remember, leadership is not a position or a title. It is an action and example. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of Leaders Personified.